It's a red letter day in India's war on Pakistan state-sponsored terror. The Narendra Modi government, according to top sources, has taken a clear stand on terror. India has modified rules of engagement with Pakistan. This is Op Sindoor breaking. India has drawn the red line for Terroristan. India has made very clear that any act of terror against India will be treated as an act of war against the people of India. India has drawn the big red line on state-sponsored terror, on Pakistan state-sponsored radical Islamist terror. An act of terror is a deliberate act of violence aimed at spreading fear among innocent people. An act of terror includes bombing, firing, hijacking, cyber attacks, biological and chemical attacks. Normally, non-state actors are used as a front by a state like Pakistan for such acts of terror, but countries like Pakistan, their feet are being held to fire by the Narendra Modi government, especially after Pahalgam. It's a very, very major development that has been announced, and I want to take you through some of the implications of what the government has just announced. Of course, this is information that India Today is getting you first. My colleague Sandeep Unnithan joins me on this broadcast, and we will talk about this in greater detail. Sandeep, stay with me as I want to play out for a moment what this means as far as Pakistan state-sponsored terror is concerned. The implications. Very clearly, the Narendra Modi government is saying India is entitled to our right to self-defense. Unacceptable Pakistan state-sponsored terror anymore. This also means, and this is the most significant point, India reserves the right to retaliate militarily. India can and does reserve the right to retaliate militarily. India can impose diplomatic costs and diplomatic sanctions on Pakistan for using terror as an instrument of state policy. India can and will raise such issues at global fora, not just on any one forum, but across different ones. Continuous attacks can lead to a full-scale, full-spectrum armed conflict. It could go into what is now known in military parlance as MDO, or multi-domain operations, can lead to full-scale armed conflict. And two of the finest voices on matters military and diplomacy join me on this show. Sandeep is with me on this broadcast. I also want to bring into this conversation India Today's Geeta Mohan. For more on this, our foreign affairs editor. Geeta, this is a very bold decision taken by the Narendra Modi government, announced. We're waiting for an official announcement, but this is what top sources have told India Today. But bring us implications of this move, especially in the light of the Pahalgam attack and the current operations.
Well, the fact that Pakistan uses terrorism as an instrument of state policy, Gaurav, if one is wargaming the entire escalation and the escalation ladder, Pakistan is not going to stick to only conventional methods. Should they use non-conventional methods yet again? What is India going to do? There must be an assessment on that with intelligence inputs going into the National Security Council, as also the Prime Minister's office, the National Security Advisor briefing the Prime Minister, and they also had a one-on-one. So this zero-tolerance policy has been now etched in stone, saying that the zero tolerance is not just in words, it is now putting it in action, saying that if there is going to be an act of terrorism, it will be considered an act of war, which means a response to any act of terror coming from Pakistan will see military response.
Stay with me for a moment. I also want to bring Sandeep Unnithan into this conversation. Foremost, Sandeep, very, very clear signaling. You and I have covered terror attacks in our country for decades. We covered IC-814 hijack. We've covered so many other terror attacks, including 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. And we kept thinking, kab tak, kab tak? Finally, it's a very, very strong, decisive action that's being taken, Sandeep.
It's a red letter day, Gaurav, as you just said. It's going to be remembered for a very long time. And if it is actually put down into writing by the government of India, if a statement is issued, I would call it equal to our no first use doctrine of nuclear weapons, the resolve not to use nuclear weapons for the, we will not be the first to use nuclear weapons. This will be that important a declaration. And, I see where the government is coming from on this, because what Pakistan has been doing, Gaurav, over the decades, as you mentioned, over the last 4 decades, where terrorism has become a part of government policy of Pakistan, the Pakistan military has just shown that they are able to use their military to protect terrorism. And we saw that so blatantly, military giving a funeral to designated terrorists. The government of India is saying, you're using your military to protect your terrorists and conduct attacks on us. We will use our military to protect our citizens. We will attack your terrorist infrastructure. We might even go into warfare, which is what the government of India has done right now. Prime Minister Modi has launched the military to carry out these retaliatory attacks on Pakistan. And it's there in global law as well, Gaurav. You have Chapter 7, Article 51 of the UN Charter, which invokes the right to self-defense. States can protect themselves in the case of, protecting themselves in the case of an armed attack. And that is what the government of India has been doing since 2019, Gaurav. After every attack, we have invoked the right to respond, the right to self-defense. And if this manifests itself into words, if it becomes a policy, then you're looking at possibly one of the most significant utterances, one of the most significant policy statements from the government of India since 1947. All of those attacks that you mentioned over the last decade that India has been fighting against, all of this is the response to that. That one line where previously the government said talks and terror cannot go hand in hand. It's taking it one level up. It's saying that terrorism equals war, and we will respond to it.
And Sandeep, if we were to look at very, very clearly and openly and in plain words, Narendra Modi government is imposing costs on that state sponsor of radical Islamist terror, because Pakistan so far thought terrorism was the low-cost option to bleed India. Conventionally, as Pakistan Army has seen in the past 72 hours, it's no match. It can't match up to India. So it thought it'll use terror as a policy to continue to bleed India. But now there are costs, and these clearly, Sandeep, are unaffordable costs for Pakistan.
Gaurav, the Pakistan military works on a single track principle. They are looking at every threat to the military as a threat that is seen in terms of security, in terms of security. And they don't understand the bigger game that's at play over here. The war on the economy, on Pakistan's economy, the bid to put the IWT, the Indus Water Treaties, in abeyance. All of these measures, it's a comprehensive all-of-government approach that's been taken to fight Pakistan's state-sponsored terrorism. And I'm sure the Pakistan military, they must be very, sane. If there are sane voices in the Pakistan military, they would be questioning the path that General Asim Munir has taken Pakistan onto. Their airspace has been shut. You have naval warships off the coast of Pakistan. You have the Indian Air Force conducting relentless strikes on Pakistan airbases. Punjab province, the heartland of Pakistan, is being targeted like never before. Not even possibly, Gaurav, I'm looking at the 2 phases of Operation Sindoor. Even in 1971, we possibly didn't carry as many surgical strikes, so many airstrikes into Punjab as we have done just in the last 3 days.
Are these strikes likely to cripple Pakistan's mindset or try to impose costs on Pakistan that it's not economical to wage war against India, it's not worth waging war against India? And for the benefit of viewers who are joining us, since early this morning, we've been up and about to get you the latest information virtually as that information filtered in. And I want to show you the bases that have been attacked. And this is unprecedented, ladies and gentlemen. Using air power to punish terror and the sponsors of terror. Remember what Prime Minister Narendra Modi had said, there will be unimaginable costs imposed on terrorists and their perpetrators. मिट्टी में मिला देंगे. यहाँ तो कई आतंकवादी हैं जो मिट्टी के भी 6 फीट नीचे इस समय है, but that's a separate story. I want to show you these air bases that have been targeted. Noor Khan Air Base in Rawalpindi. It's the most strategic Air Force base of Pakistan. Murid radar installation, Rahim Yar Khan, very, very important base and weapons storage. Sukur is a dual-use radar that's been taken down. This is actually Pakistan's Punjab province that's been targeted. Remember, not in POJK right now, not in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, not in Baluchistan, not in Sindh. It's only in Pakistan's Punjab province, because that is where that radical Islamist terror and that mindset breeds, whether it's Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba or Pakistan Army, the majority. So what's been happening? What are the places? Rafiki is a very important Pakistan Air Force base. Rafiki is one of those air bases, Sandeep, where the drones were stored. The drones that repeatedly targeted India were at Rafiki Air Base. Sialkot is an aviation base. That's a helicopter base. Masroor was an early warning system, a radar system that's been destroyed. So tomorrow, there's a big hole that's been punched in Pakistan's air defense. Their HQ-16 system, their HQ-9B, that is their air defense system. That's been taken down. In another place quite here, Pakistan's radars have been taken down. So India's punched a big hole in their air defense shield, and this area, Lahore, the area around Lahore, extremely, extremely vulnerable. And Sandeep, I want you to come here and join me, and let's explain this to our viewers. Noor Khan at Rawalpindi, the C-130s are deployed here. The comm squadron, the communication squadron is here, but so are the drones, and so are some of their strategic assets.
Including the air-to-air refuelers. The IL-78s are parked here. So this is a base, the Noor Khan base, formerly the Chaklala Air Force Base, is where Pakistan parks most of its enablers. Now, the enablers are your AWNC aircraft, your transport aircraft, and most importantly, they are the flight refuelers, the IL-78s, which they bought a couple of years back, which enhance the range and radius of their fighter squadron. So that is a big message there, striking at PAF Noor Khan, the airbase in Rawalpindi, the backyard of General Headquarters Rawalpindi.
Oh, absolutely.
All the VIP squadrons, are there. The generals fly out of Rawalpindi. It's very important to them.
Now they can't fly out.
The base is paralyzed, Gaurav, for
at Rahim Yar Khan, and we will show you those images in just a moment. And Sandeep, this is something. Why is Noor Khan Air Base so important? As Sandeep was just explaining, located right next to the GHQ, Pakistan Army Headquarters in Rawalpindi. Remember, the seat of power in Pakistan is not Islamabad, it is Rawalpindi.
It is Rawalpindi indeed. And Gaurav, it'd be interesting to explain to our viewers what really happens when ordnance falls on an airbase. When a bomb falls, when an airfield is cratered, for instance, a runway is knocked out, a building is taken out, you have the whole airfield, of course, flying operations cease immediately. The bomb disposal teams come in, they take over the whole airbase, and they go over it, looking for unexploded ordnance, looking for bomblets and, mines, missiles, all of that. So it essentially paralyzes an airbase for more than a day. And it's only once they pronounce all clear, then you can start with the repair and reconstruction of these airbases.
So probably Pakistan's bomb disposal squads will be all over this base. Why? Because this also houses their Ilyushin 78, their IL-78s, that's the mid-air refueler aircraft. I believe it had gone for retrofit, if I remember correctly, unless it's already come back. They have their C-130s and they have their mid-air refuelers. The Lockheed Hercules C-130 aircraft is also here. That's a tactical lift transport aircraft, VVIP flying, and also for special forces.
Absolutely, Gaurav. And it was interesting that we had Admiral Arun Prakash on the show just last night with Rajdeep and you, where he was talking about his 1971 experience. And he has actually flown combat missions over Sargodha.
Absolutely. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. This is the Noor Khan Air Base, and it is burning. It's burning. Deep, it's burning. Noor Khan Air Base, Rawalpindi. It's in flames. That's the blast. That's the blast. And there it's burning. And we don't know how long will it burn. We don't know how long. Of course, air forces have that fast-setting cement.
Yes.
That's used for quick repair of runways and airfields.
They'll be looking at, restoring flying activity to these bases as soon as possible, Gaurav, because, this is a huge symbolic attack and the PAF would want to demonstrate that it has the ability to bounce back rapidly. But the message has been conveyed, Gaurav. Most importantly, the message has been conveyed to General Headquarters Rawalpindi.
I also want to show you the Rafiki Air Base. Remember, a lot was being said, and in a way to bring down the morale of the Indian people, that, oh my God, there have been so many drones that are being sent into your country. That's the way the narrative was being built from Leh to Sir Creek. That's being sent now. this is the image that's coming in. So that's a likely JF-17 Thunder Block 1 and Block 2 squadron. At another place, that's a blast pen for the likely Mirage 3 and Mirage 5. They're both, don't they? This is the India Today OSINT team. We've taken a look at the satellite imagery here. Help our viewers understand this. This looks like the runway. And we wouldn't know if this is when was this picture taken. The runway here looks quite intact, but this is satellite imagery. It could be about a week old or more.
Right, absolutely, Gaurav. What you're looking at here is a runway of more than 2 kilometers, and you're looking at the dispersal sites for aircraft storage at different areas. Now, dispersed, aircraft are not all parked together.
Bunched up, they're
never bunched up to protect them from enemy attack. They are usually dispersed, and what you see here are the dispersal sites where the aircraft are parked, far apart, and they're parked in hardened pens. You have these defensive pens.
Those are the hardened pens.
So those are the pens
several feet of concrete to protect it from a bomb blast. Inside these are fighter jets. I want to now move to the next picture. We're showing you air bases, and we're showing you, okay, this is the helipad at the Chunian Park Air Base. This is a helicopter base. That's a helipad. That's a military hospital, and that's the ISI headquarters. This again is an airbase that's been targeted. We still have to see the kind of ordnance that was used. And I believe some of the ordnance here has also been destroyed.
Yes, Gaurav. And in fact, this is very interesting how these bases have been targeted. They all have something to do with the attacks that the Pakistan Air Force has launched on India. So it's cause and effect, really. And these air bases, these military sites have all been tracked very carefully by the Indian Air Force. And that is the reason, like, Pakistan has nearly 40 airfields and air bases, but only these 8 were selected, very carefully targeted, to send out a message that we know this is from where.
4 major air bases, 2 helipads, 2 radar stations. That's the one that's been targeted. Okay, after Chunian, we'll take you to Sukur. Okay, so that's a parked aircraft.
That looks like a VVIP transport aircraft.
A Comsquadron.
A Comsquadron aircraft or a Gulfstream. It looks like a Gulfstream G4 or a G5. Judging by its appearance. And then you have, of course, the hardened aircraft shelters and the hangars over here. So this is Sukur Air Base. This is another big, very, very important fighter base for the Pakistan Air Force.
One in Sindh, the majority in Pakistan, 2 in Sindh.
2 in Sindh, and the rest in
Punjab province.
Punjab province.
Sargodha is a very, very significant message that India has sent out to Pakistan. So this is what it was on the 10th of May. Possible runway damage is being reported because in April, the runway looks absolutely intact there. And you see perhaps a hole that's punched into this here. So if the runway is damaged, and that's pretty effective, right? The heart of the runway is gone.
Right.
So you can't use it this side, you can't use it this side. The heart of the runway has been punched by the ordnance, by the weapons and systems that have been used. There is a signal that's going out to Pakistan Army. And remember, India said India will not escalate. So only those air bases, only those airfields are being targeted that were used for attacks against India. The aim, Sandeep, very clearly was to destroy Pakistan's command and control, logistics, other nodes that could be used for an attack against India, and also degrade their ability to bleed us in the future. So this was futuristic. Rahim Yar Khan, important weapons storage. Sukur had that dual-use radar. Chunia again had the radar and the technical depot. Rafiki is a picture which we'll try and just put out for you at the Rahim Yar Khan base, where there's a big hole. There. Watch that, Rafiki. Oh, amazing. Okay, it's actually more than just amazing. It's. Have you seen something like this before in our operations? Of course, you've seen this happening to Iraq, but Iraq is a non-nuclear weapon state.
Never on the subcontinent, Gaurav. It's never happened.
Remember,
it's unprecedented actually what you're seeing here. These visuals, these images have not been seen since 1971. That the last major war between India and Pakistan, and that basically tells you that the government of India says a line was crossed in Pahalgam on the 22nd of April.
Okay.
And these are the consequences.
Okay. So the point that we've been trying to make continuously is, why is it so difficult for Pakistan to be able to use some of these runways right now? One, there's a big crater, there's a big hole, and it will take some time to fill up that hole. Of course, all air forces across the world have what is known as fast-setting cement. As soon as there's that hole is there, you quickly bring your teams, your MES, that's your engineers, your military engineering service, you bring them, they clear the debris immediately, Sandeep, and they bring that fast-setting cement, they lay that cement immediately, then they tar it if it's possible. If it's not possible, then they just move ahead with the cement.
Absolutely.
And it's a cemented runway for about 3 kilometers.
A cemented runway.
So that by the next morning, the airfield is good to go.
Airfield is good to go, and that's what the experience has been over conflict ever since the Second World War, when, you know, airfields were targeted.
Unless there is unexploded ordnance, or for the benefit of our viewers, unless there are bombs and bomblets that are just lying around there. And if they are, your troops could be going there, and your troops in an anti-personnel mine, they could be impacted. We don't know what kind of ordnance is lying there.
All we know is that the Indian Air Force was used for these attacks, and they used standoff precision-guided weapons.
With our aircraft on the Indian side.
With the aircraft not crossing the international border. It's safe to assume that, because we've not crossed the international border in any of these engagements over the last couple of days. But you know, the most important thing, Gaurav, is that it's not only attacking the Air Force, Pakistan Air Force sites that were used to launch attacks against us, but it's also clearing the way for subsequent escalations of Operation Sindoor.
Yes.
You had Operation Sindoor Phase 1, which was the strike on terrorist infrastructure.
Look at this crater, Sandeep.
You had
Just
Phase
look
3.
at this crater.
You're looking at a crater that's easily about 50 feet wide, and it's about
Oh my God, look at the amount of explosives
deep.
that would have been used for this.
This is possibly, you would need a weapon that had a warhead of at least half a ton of high explosive. And these weapons, as you can see, there's a lot of concrete that it's punched through.
Yeah.
It's at least 12 inches of concrete that it has gone through and exploded and destroyed, rendering this area completely unusable.
Unusable. Rahim Yar Khan airbase in southern part of Pakistan's Punjab cannot be used for quite some time. And I quickly want to now bring Ankit Kumar into this conversation. Ankit, you've been looking at satellite imagery very, very closely, and you're also using open source intelligence to do in a manner the bomb damage assessment. What can you tell our viewers?
Well, Gaurav, since the morning's briefing at the MEA, we can confirm that at least 3 different air bases in Pakistan have come under attack. We have visual evidence to corroborate all these things. We have earlier put out satellite picture from PAF base Musaf at Sargodha. We can see visible damage in satellite pictures, although it's a Landsat picture. You see on the right hand of your screen, you can see this small dot. The reason why this difference is so little is because it's a low resolution picture. So this entire strip is roughly 45 meters wide. So even if this looks like a very small dot, it could be very well be 30-35 meter diameter of crater. So that could be something for the ground staff to work on. The lessons that we have seen from Ukraine, although it is very difficult to destroy the entire airbase with some conventional weapon, but it is not that easy. It has not been that easy. It has not been that easy to kind of, get the things going the next day. This again is, this place was mentioned in today's press conference. Now we are trying to understand what else is here. There is no airbase here. It's just an helipad. But what is important is there is a military hospital as well as a facility for ISI office. What we are going to understand is that there is some kind of command and control center for the intelligence services of the Pakistani military. The next picture that we are going to show is Shukur. Now, why this place is important? Because of its proximity to the international border, roughly 100 kilometers away from the border. You can see there is some private jet parked here, probably used by some top military functionary. Also, there are shelters, hangars, etc. The next, I think should be the one that is the biggest catch. That is in that is the Noor Khan in Rawalpindi. The most critical, perhaps the most prized, perhaps the largest. Why? Because of the purposes it is supposed to serve. You can see there are refuelers, there are transport aircrafts, all the VVIP movement that you see in Pakistan, the Prime Minister, the Army Chief, the DGISI, they have to come here, right? Their jets, and we track them very regularly. J756, who uses it? Pakistan Prime Minister. You just set an alert or just set an alarm on your flight radar app, and every time the Prime Minister of Pakistan decides to go somewhere, you will get an alert. I will give you one more. J755, you know, sometimes your foreign minister, if he decides to go somewhere, the call sign will be maybe Park 03, Park 04. That will be either the foreign minister or some other minister. There is a Gulfstream that is used by General Asif Munir, slightly masked. So this is perhaps the biggest target that has been achieved.
So what is his, you know, Ankit, it's amazing you mentioned that, and this shows you how closely India Today's team tracks Pakistan and of course terrorists. So, you know, what is the call sign for the Pakistan Army Chief? Is it terrorist one?
I will give you the tail number. It's 4270 because it is numbered. Difficult to get difficult to play back. But if you use ADSB exchange, you can always track that jet.
So Terror 1 is his call sign, I'm sure.
So anybody in India wants to see where Pakistan Army Chief is going, 4270 is the tail number.
Okay, okay. Tell us more about the damage, because I want our country to know what Indian Air Force has done, because this is perhaps the first time that such costs have been imposed on Pakistan state-sponsored radical Islamist terror. Never in the history of this country, and we've bled hard. 1993 Mumbai blast, oh my God, how we've bled. This is the first time that costs are being imposed on that radical Islamist terror state and its army. Bring us more details.
Gaurav, you know what? In moments from now, there's another press conference going on. Earlier in the press conference, we had announced 8 targets. Since then, more targets have been hit. And when I say targets, mostly air bases. Sargodha, we have not shown Jacobabad yet. Home to F-16. Most of F-16 that Pakistan is so prized to have, they are there at Jacobabad. This
big story. That's a big story that Ankit Kumar is breaking here. And of course, we will hear it officially, and we will wait till we hear it from Government of India. But you know how closely India Today tracks Pakistan state-sponsored radical Islamist terror. Sandeep here and Ankit there. They have every detail of what's happening there, and our team. And we have a big team that tracks terror. And our only aim is to ensure that we keep our people forewarned, Sandeep, because being forewarned is being forearmed. Ankit, bring us more details of all that is happening in dealing with the state-sponsored terror. Bring us more details.
You know, Gaurav, Pakistan does not have any more cards to play. You may well hear Pakistan offering for a peace deal, some kind of a ceasefire. You may hear this in moments from now, and the reason why all those things will be happening because of pictures like this. They do not have any more cards to play, Gaurav.
Really? Describe that to us. And Sandeep, let's understand this in greater detail. Are you saying that there are other air bases other than information in public domain? You know, because of course we've made one thing very clear. Information is going out only that comes through official channels. But Pakistan has suffered in terms of their support to terror and costs being imposed on them. Ankit.
Well, Gaurav, let's just talk about the pictures first, right? What we are showing. The pictures are showing that the entire length and breadth of Pakistan, from north to south, from Sindh to Punjab, no airbase is safe today. Every airbase has been hit. The accuracy, the runway of those airbases have been hit. And that is why it is being speculated that in moments from now, you may hear offers of a ceasefire.
News coming in. There's breaking news coming in. Stay with me for a moment. There's a big story that's coming in. It's a big statement that's coming in from the US President Donald Trump on the situation in the subcontinent. Donald Trump, India and Pakistan have agreed to a ceasefire, is what US President Donald Trump has said. Pleased to announce India and Pakistan have agreed to a ceasefire. Big statement coming in, and you're hearing it first on India Today. The US president has announced that India and Pakistan have agreed to a ceasefire for now. Trump has said he is pleased to announce India and Pakistan have agreed to a ceasefire. This after India carried out major strikes against 4 major military bases in Pakistan and punished radical Islamist terror and their sponsors in Pakistan. I want to quickly cut across to India Today's Shivani Sharma, who joins us for more on this. Shivani, bring us details of this statement by Donald Trump on Truth Social.
Gaurav, this is a big breaking that Donald Trump has now announced and congratulated both the countries for a ceasefire. He says that after a long night of deliberations, both the countries have agreed for an immediate and full de-escalation and a ceasefire, immediate ceasefire that has been announced by Donald Trump, the US President, Gaurav. And this is actually a big development in past 4 days after Operation Sindoor was successfully conducted after these terror outfits were neutralized, and how Pakistan had been escalating by sending swarm drones to Indian places. And now Donald Trump, the President of America, has announced that this is a big step by both the countries, where both the countries have agreed to an immediate and complete ceasefire. So now ceasefire has been announced by Donald Trump, and he's congratulating both India and Pakistan. So this was a mediation by United States, and after which Pakistan and India have now deliberated and they have agreed for a ceasefire. That's what the court is suggesting. Or
is there clarity when the ceasefire comes into effect? Does it come into effect immediately? And do we know, or do we have details, what if Pakistan were to violate the ceasefire?
See, Gaurav, this post that has been given out by Donald J. Trump on at 5:25 p.m. At May 10th, that means the Indian time, just minutes back, says that full and immediate ceasefire. Immediate means it is starting now, as per the announcement. And this also says congratulations to both countries on using common sense and great intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And this is the usual acknowledgement, thanks that U.S. President has been doing.
U.S. President has been doing, and he has announced that after a long night of talks mediated by the United States, I am pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. Gaurav, we have to wait for the MEA presser that has to happen at 6. We have to see what the announcements come from Indian government after this mediation has been done by the United States of America. But certainly this is a big development. We've been seeing a lot of operational action across the western border in India, where Pakistan has been trying to inflict upon the civilians, and India had been retaliating with restraint. But India had made it very clear that any kind of act of terror will be taken as act of war.
Okay.
So India doesn't want any terror activity upon the Indian citizens. That has also been made very clear, and now we have to wait for the MEA press conference that has to happen at 6 this evening, just few minutes from now, and then there'll be more clarity on this, Gaurav.
Oh, absolutely. And there is one thing I want the viewers of India Today, and they know it, whether it's war or peace, you hear it first on India Today. War or peace. I want to quickly cut across and bring in India Today's Akshita Nandagopal for more on the story. Also with me is my friend Sandeep Unnithan, with my colleague Sandeep Unnithan. Akshita, weigh in on this. Sandeep, come join us on this big story. Akshita, bring us details of not just the statement, but the implications right now.
Gaurav, first, we'll focus on the statement that's come in from Donald Trump. As always, he's posted on Truth Social, and he said, I'll just read it out quickly for you. It says, after a long night of talks mediated by the United States, I'm pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed, and he puts this bit in caps. He says, have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. Congratulations to both countries on using common sense and great intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He's put out this post at 5:20 5:25 p.m. Indian Standard Time at about 8 a.m. in Washington. So essentially what he's suggesting is that the ceasefire comes into effect immediately. He says full and immediate ceasefire. He's highlighted that bit. Important also to talk about the first line where he says mediated by the United States. We've been hearing of dialogue with the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio speaking both to India and Pakistan. The External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has constantly been interacting with America and informing them that India has merely been exercising its right to retaliate, to respond to Pakistan. So it looks like the US's mediation has largely also been on telling Pakistan that, they have to crack down on terror. If they continue to provoke, we will respond, essentially, because India is stuck and we've stuck our ground on that, Gaurav.
Akshita, stay with us. Shivani is with us. Sandeep with me on this big story. I want to bring in one of India's most seasoned political correspondents who joins us on this big story. Let me bring into this conversation Rajdeep Sardesai for more on this. And Rajdeep, whether it's war or peace, everyone hears it first on India Today. And this is a big step, at least towards a ceasefire, if not peace yet. Rajdeep, what do you make of what US President Donald Trump has written on Truth Social?
Look, Gaurav, this is huge because clearly there has been this buzz about back-channel talks taking place with the United States at different levels being involved. You will recall last night we spoke to Fareed Zakaria and he said there were two views within the Trump administration. One reflected by J.D. Vance, the vice president, who said this is India's matter and virtually washing their hands of it. And there was Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State and NSA, who we are told has been constantly in touch with both sides. The key, though, is we are told there was a direct call to General Asim Munir this afternoon. And I think that was the clincher, that the Pakistani general was spoken to directly. Until now, the conversations were taking place at the level of Shahbaz Sharif and at Dr. Jaishankar here. Yeah. When that conversation went to the Pakistani general, you got a sense that the Americans were serious and were taking their mediation efforts to the next level. And in that sense, I think both sides will probably, and you'll see a reflection of that, perhaps this evening. We've had 2 evenings of constant drone attacks by the Pakistanis and then Indian retaliation. I hope, given what Donald Trump has said, you will probably finally see some light at the end of the tunnel, Gaurav.
And in this situation, Rajdeep, your appreciation, can Pakistan at this stage be trusted to fulfill its commitments given Pakistan's past track record?
Well, Gaurav, I don't think the US president would put himself on the line unless he's got some firm assurance. It doesn't necessarily mean, and you're right, that Pakistan in the future may not engage in similar misadventures like they did in Pahalgam. But clearly, for now, I think this statement clearly shows a willingness on both sides. And I think we need to emphasize that on both sides to pull back a bit. Because unless both sides pulled back, this was never going to be resolved. Because there is anger in India, visible anger at what Pakistan has done, and Pakistan needed to satisfy its domestic constituency and get the army some of its lost legitimacy by seemingly taking on India. So I think, given the fact that the US president, no less, Gaurav, has put his reputation on the line with this kind of statement on Truth Social, then retweeted by J.D. Vance, it would seem, and as I said, given Marco Rubio's conversation with General Munir earlier today, it would seem that there is some hope that the Pakistanis have finally seen sense and realized that this is a war they can't win. And the last thing that they want, given the fact, remember also, Gaurav, that they got their IMF bailout yesterday. There are those who are linking this announcement also to that bailout. Having got the bailout, they get a bit of breathing space.
Rajdeep, stay with me for a moment. There's big breaking news that's coming in. Rajdeep, stay with me, and I want to talk to you about this. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, there's a reaction that's coming in. Secretary of State he says, over the past 48 hours, Vice President J.D. Vance and I have engaged with senior Indian and Pakistani officials, including Prime Ministers Narendra Modi and Shehbaz Sharif, External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar, Chief of the Army Staff General Asim Munir, and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, and Pakistan's Asim Malik. I am pleased to announce the governments of India and Pakistan have agreed to an immediate ceasefire and to start talks on a broad set of issues at a neutral site We commend Prime Ministers Modi and Sharif on their wisdom, prudence and statesmanship in choosing the path of peace. Rajdeep, this is big, this is big. This is talking about an immediate ceasefire and conversations at a neutral place on a broad set of issues. That is huge as far as India, Pakistan are concerned, Rajdeep.
Absolutely, Gaurav. I think the second part is even more significant. The first, of course, was the immediate ceasefire. But the very fact that the two sides are willing to talk to each other on a broad range of issues takes this to another level. It suggests that not only are the two sides coming to a ceasefire, but hopefully in the near immediate future coming to some kind of a commitment on talking to each other. I think one of the concerns, Gaurav, has been that there has been so little dialogue between the two sides. In fact, Fareed Zakaria made this point very emphatically yesterday, that one of the problems was that there was very little back-channel dialogue taking place. You will recall, Gaurav, you covered the Kargil war. That war ended with Bill Clinton's direct intervention.
Yes.
And Nawaz Sharif, you will recall, was called to Washington at the time, and that's how the Kargil war ended. Now you've got a situation where Donald Trump, who till yesterday, and this is interesting because with Donald Trump you never know what happens next. Till yesterday, he didn't seem very interested in resolve or directly getting involved. But in the last 24 hours, he's directly got involved. I think there's a sense that the Americans got that this is escalating beyond control. There were two sides only who could really resolve this. One are the Chinese and the other are the Americans. The
Yes.
Chinese are seen to not be neutral players when it comes to India and Pakistan. The Americans can claim that they've got a strong strategic relationship with India and they can exert a certain moral authority over Pakistan as well. As I said, I think that conversation with General Munir was key. I'm also told, Gaurav, and this is interesting, that Nawaz Sharif attended one of the meetings yesterday
Yes.
of the Pakistan civilian leadership. Now, Nawaz Sharif had come in from London and he apparently impressed upon his brother Shahbaz as well as the Pakistani military that, look, we cannot afford to get into a long drawn-out conflict at this stage. And so a certain element of pragmatism appears to have prevailed. And this is, given what's happened in the last few days, a really positive sign, Gaurav.
It indeed is a very cautious first step towards de-escalation, at least an immediate ceasefire. Sandeep Unnithan joins me on this, and Sandeep and I were actually wargaming an escalation ladder and steps to de-escalate. But Sandeep, Government of India constantly said if Pakistan does not escalate, we will not. We've made our point. We've struck the terror camps. Pakistan chose to escalate and there were consequences, massive losses for Pakistan. Now there is talk of conversation and peace. Is this that message sent across to Pakistan, Sandeep?
Exactly, Gaurav. And just a few hours back, you and me were talking about what happens next, and we almost said it. After Rubio, it's going to be Donald Trump who's going to mediate the peace process. And there's a history to this, Gaurav, you know, stretching back to 1986-87, when you had brass tacks. The Americans intervened. That was the first time that they intervened to bring peace between India and Pakistan. The second intervention was what is called the compound crisis of 1990, when they once again sent down the CIA chief, Casey, to mediate between India and Pakistan, when they thought both countries were going to attack each other. The third was, of course, the Kargil crisis in 1999, the border war that India won, Op Vijay, as Rajdeep just mentioned. And the fourth crisis was, of course, Op Parakram, caused by the Parliament attack on 2001, 2002. So this is going to be the fifth crisis that the United States has intervened in, and it appears to have reached an agreement with both of the sides, got them to decide to call for a ceasefire, because Pakistan was literally in a very hard place, Gaurav. As Rajdeep mentioned, the fact is that General Asim Munir thought he could turn Pakistan into a hard state. He took some very hard decisions, and just like Pervez Musharraf in 1999, he's landed Pakistan into a very, very hard situation indeed, Gaurav. And this is exactly almost a replay of the Kargil War of 1999, where the military adventurism that General Musharraf resorted to had to be settled by Nawaz Sharif, who had to run to Washington to get Bill Clinton to end the conflict.
So that was in July. August, September, October. 3 months later, he lost his job. Now it remains to be seen, Rajdeep, if you're still with me, 3 months later, will Shahbaz Sharif lose his job if history were to repeat itself? And Sandeep, it would be very curious right now. Will Shahbaz Sharif continue? And this time, will Shahbaz Sharif remain and Asim Munir lose his job? I mean, it's a very tricky situation in Pakistan. Usually, army comes up on top. Sandeep.
Oh, well, you know, it's always been, history always, you know, repeats and rhymes in Pakistan's case. After the defeat of 1971, you saw the military giving way to Yahya Khan giving way to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who then ruled until 1976. He was unseated in a coup by General Zia. And then you had Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif coming in after General Zia died in that case of exploding mangoes blast in Sargodha and in Chaklala Air Base in 1988. In Bahawalpur. I stand corrected. Bahawalpur in 1988. So it's almost like a merry-go-round of military dictators and puppet prime ministers. So it's, you know, in a constant state of this. You have these revolving doors.
Absolutely, and such a big story. You know, you and I are reporting history. We were reporting that in 1999, the Kargil War. Then 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks, series of other terror attacks, and even now we're seeing history being made and we're reporting it. And Akshita, this is a very, very interesting case, and what a roller coaster has this been. Just this morning, India has bombed Pakistan so extensively, and 6 hours later, as we were gearing up to report on the next round, there's a ceasefire in place.
I just want to read out for you, Gaurav, and for our viewers, essentially, what Secretary Marco Rubio has had to say on the ceasefire. He's been the one who's constantly been in dialogue with India as well as Pakistan. So he's put out a detailed post, and here's what's interesting. He says, over the past 48 hours, Vice President Vance and I have engaged with senior Indian and Pakistani officials, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Shehbaz Sharif, External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar, Chief of Army Staff Asim Munir, and the National Security Advisors Ajit Doval and Asim Malik. This stands out for me particularly because if you remember, and I'm sure you'll be able to throw more light on this, you had the US Vice President J.D. Vance just 2 days ago saying it's none of our business, we're not going to mediate. And here you have essentially the Secretary of State Rubio and the Vice President of America, J.D. Vance, leading the dialogue. And he said, we've spoken to the Prime Minister of India, we've spoken to Prime Minister Modi, we've spoken to Shehbaz Sharif. He's listed out everyone he's spoken to. He says, I'm pleased to announce the governments of India and Pakistan have agreed to an immediate ceasefire and to start talks on a broad set of issues at a neutral site. We commend Prime Ministers Modi and Sharif on their wisdom, prudence and statesmanship in choosing the path of peace. This is a statement that's come in from US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, highlighting that over the last 2 days, he and J.D. Vance have been speaking to India and Pakistan. Just quickly, one more update before I hand it back over to you, Gaurav. Ishaq Dar of Pakistan has also confirmed that they have agreed to a ceasefire with this statement. Pakistan and India have agreed to a ceasefire with immediate effect. Pakistan has always strived for peace and security in the region. That's something that's up for debate, of course, but that's the first confirmation that's come in from Pakistan too. The message from Marco Rubio here is the one that's most important. He's been in talks constantly with both sides, and he's always, of course, been someone who's been in the forefront for the Trump administration in all talks, dialogue with India and perhaps South Asia.
Ceasefire is the big story, and just in minutes from now, there will be a briefing by the Ministry of External Affairs about action taken so far, about conversations that have happened with US leadership, President Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Vice President J.D. Vance with the Indian leadership. Shivani, this is when the forces were all geared up, and the US President has just announced India and Pakistan have agreed to a ceasefire, and this really means, fortunately, Shivani, no more losses of life. Piyush also joins us on this broadcast. Piyush, right now, we're all on standby for that press conference by the Ministry of External Affairs, and that's going to happen just in a couple of minutes from now. India, Pakistan have worked out a border ceasefire. That's the information that is coming in. The two nations have directly initiated a ceasefire. Pakistani military officer initiated the call. Pakistan DGMO, the Director General of Military Operations, initiated the call this afternoon, after which discussions took place and an understanding was reached. There is no decision to hold talks on any other issue or any other place. There's another twist in the tail. There's another twist in the tail. Oh, big twist in the tail. It's only a ceasefire and no resumption of dialogue between India and Pakistan on other issues is what top government sources are telling India today. Marco Rubio had indicated that both countries are to discuss all issues and other issues at a neutral site. Sources are saying no, there is no decision to hold a decision on any other issue right now. India denies holding talks on any other issue at any other place, is top government sources are telling India today, because the point is ceasefire, yes, so that no lives are lost, but resumption of dialogue with Pakistan is only when credible and irreversible action is taken against India-centric terror, and the Narendra Modi government is very clear about that, Sandeep.
Absolutely, Gaurav. Talks and terror don't go hand in hand. That has been the Narendra Modi government's stance from day one. And there is no question of holding talks with Pakistan as long as this infrastructure of terrorism that we have struck so successfully on the 7th of May is still active, up and running in Pakistan. The infrastructure of terror, Gaurav, once again to explain to our viewers, is something that was set up during the Afghan war to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan, after which the ISI and the Pakistan army used it to train, recruit and launch terrorists against India, beginning from Kashmir in 1990. They spread that war into the mainland. 1993, Mumbai, you had RDX from ordnance factories of Pakistan army being launched and, targeting Mumbaikars, attacking them.
Sandeep, stay with me for a moment. More breaking news coming in, and I want to cut across to Rohit Sharma, who joins us from Washington, D.C., and our Foreign Affairs editor, Geeta Mohan, joining us with this big twist in the tail, that ceasefire, yes, but no other talks on any other issue. Geeta, bring us details. India's denied holding talks on any other issue to take place. Tell us more, Geeta. Okay, Foreign Secretary.
India at 15:35 hours earlier this afternoon. It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing and military action on land and in the air and sea with effect from 1700 hours Indian Standard Time today. Instructions have been given on both sides to give effect to this understanding. The Directors General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours. Thank you.
Sweet. It's a big statement that comes from Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri. 1700 hours, a ceasefire has been put in place. Big story coming here on India Today, and this ceasefire has come into effect from 1700 hours today. India has confirmed there is a ceasefire in place. It came into effect 1 hour earlier. The conversation took place between the Director Generals of Military Operations. India has confirmed there is a ceasefire in place. A ceasefire that has come into effect at 1700 hours today. There was a conversation between the Director Generals of Military Operations of India and Pakistan. I want to cut across to my colleague Rohit Sharma, who joins us for more on the story. Rohit, ceasefire in place. America is believed to have played a critical role both behind the scenes and now openly. That statement that's come in from Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Absolutely, Gaurav. I think this is something that America has been wanting to do. We've seen from day one. President Trump has said that he wanted to intervene. He wanted to help both the sides. And then today, finally we learned that, it was a long night here in America. There were a lot of calls between Pakistan, Islamabad, and India, including the Secretary of State Marco Rubio and VP speaking with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So it seems like America has been.
That, as you know, there'll be a briefing by my colleagues from the military. The Director General of Military Operations of Pakistan called the Director General of Military Operations of India at 15:35 hours earlier this afternoon. It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing and military action on land and in the air and sea with effect from 1700 hours Indian Standard Time today. Instructions have been given on both sides to give effect to this understanding. The Directors General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours. Thank you.
It's a very short and very cryptic statement that's come in from Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri. There's a ceasefire which is already in place. Ceasefire that's already started, 1700 hours, that's 5 p.m. today. The two DGMOs, they spoke at 15:35 this evening, which means 3:35 was when the Pakistan DGMO called up his Indian counterpart and proposed the ceasefire. The ceasefire is on land, sea and air, which means no more will the Indian Navy ships be carrying out their live firing drill and military exercises, naval exercises in the Arabian Sea. No longer will Indian Air Force fighter jets bomb Pakistan Air Force bases and terrorist infrastructure and launch pads, at least not for now. And no longer will the armies remain in a situation where there's ceasefire violation along the line of control on either side of the Pir Panjal ranges. I want to bring in Shivani Sharma, our defense correspondent. So Shivani, the DGMOs will speak again. They usually speak every Tuesday to know what's happening on the other side of the hill and to keep everything under control. But this is a very, very significant call, especially when ceasefire violations were leading to major civilian losses of life on either side of the line of control.
Gaurav, this will not be the usual routine DGMO call that happens every Tuesday, but this will be a special DGMO call that will be taken up on Monday, that is 12th of May, and exactly little more than after 24 hours of ceasefire that has been announced by the Ministry of External Affairs also, and this ceasefire will be maintained on land, air and sea. We were reporting a lot of ceasefire violation along the line of control where a lot of damage was inflicted on the Indian property, the civilians were being harmed, and now when the ceasefire has been announced, there will be a respite on both the sides. But yes, we have to review this ceasefire if it is being met accordingly or not, and we have to keep on the talks at the DGMO level. So on Monday at around 12, there will be a talk between the DGMOs of India and Pakistan to discuss the ceasefire and how it's been taken ahead. Gaurav.
Indeed, Foreign Affairs Editor Geeta Mohan also with us on this story. We have Sandeep Punithan with me on this big story because this is a day of very fast-paced developments. Piyush also joins us on this. Piyush, this was a very cryptic statement that was made by the Foreign Secretary. There was intervention, we are told, from the United States of America. What more are you picking up from your sources?
Well, Gaurav, one thing is clear that ceasefire has been announced by both the sides, and that happened after the Pakistan DGMO spoke with Indian DGMO, and they have announced a ceasefire. Now the other level of talks will take place. Another talks will take place on 12th of May at 12 noon. And apart from that, no other talks will take place because one thing is clear that we cannot have talks and terror go hand in hand. Also, it's very important to understand, Gaurav, that the sources within the government have told us that any act of terror in future will be considered as an act of war and it will be responded effectively. That's what the sources have told us. And if in future any act of terror is carried out by Pakistan, then we will respond accordingly. Looking at that, we can also expect more developments to take place in the day. But the biggest development which we are right now picking is that ceasefire has been announced, and it was a very brief statement which was made by Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri.
I want to bring in Rohit Sharma, who joins us from the United States. Rohit, sorry we had to interrupt you because you were listening into the Foreign Secretary and getting in reactions. But tell us what happened behind the scenes. We've read the statements that came from Marco Rubio and Vance, and of course now Donald Trump on Truth Social. Rohit?
Yes, Gaurav, I think, as I was stating earlier, I think President Trump has been wanting to intervene from day one. I think he said it multiple times. And I think over the past days, escalation, I think it was pretty clear that the US wanted to step in. We did see that there was a statement issued by Secretary of State that he had called the Pakistani general last night. I mean, that my night, your morning, and they were talking about it. And it seems to us over here in the US that they've been able to convince Pakistan to stop this and then go out to the Indian side and say, look, we've convinced Pakistan they're not going to do anything, and we should now proceed to talks. Now, there's also talk about having a future talk at a neutral neutral venue. We do not know any details, but it's a big claim. Also, on the other side of things, I think what we've picked up essentially is America did not want any major escalation in this war. Look, as far as Donald Trump is concerned, he came in claiming that he's going to stop war between Ukraine and Russia. He's dealing with situation in the Middle East, and he did not want another war. So I think they were heavily invested in stopping this.
Okay.
They've been successful. As of now, they've been successful in declaring this ceasefire. Now it all remains on to see if Pakistan follows through and if they do not do any misadventures, Gaurav.
That's a very interesting caveat that you've added, Rohit, because you're well aware of the situation on ground.